Today's show is brought to you by the Bill Gates Foundation, secretly microchipping society since 2019. Today on the show, the great crypto crash, or was it one big conspiracy?
We chat with one of Australia's comedy royalty, Anthony Ackroyd.
And Kevin07, the big K-Rudd, pays us a visit.
All that and more on the Bad Boys podcast.
If you want the hard-hitting journalism of...
We'll do it live! Fuck it!
Quite often I need 2 holes so that I can squirt.
And I remember that chili too.
Meet that little bit of resistance. It usually means it's full.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
I love chili, but it's not more important than family porn.
Why are you laughing?
We're just children.
Conversations no one wants to have, but everyone wants to hear.
We'll do it live! Fuck it!
This is the Bad Boys Podcast. Welcome to the Bad Boys Podcast and a new little intro for Saturdays. What did you think, Andrew?
I loved it, mate. I loved it. It's as crazy as we are, which is absolutely fabulous.
Absolutely. And we have a special guest here. Now I'm going to do my obligatory intro. Our special guest today is a comedian who hit our screens in the late 80s on The Big Gig. He was the lead singer in the almost famous rock band Albatross. We've seen him on Hey Hey It's Saturday, The Comedy Company, and Good News Week, but we know him for his impersonation of Kevin Rudd that tickled Bob Hawke's funny bone. Then again, Bob's funny bone was tickled by a pint of beer and a short skirt. He is, of course, the one and only Anthony Ackroyd. Welcome to the Bad Boys.
Thank you, guys. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with the Bad Boys. And can I establish, is that bad in the Michael Jackson sense or the rose tattoo sense?
I think probably both. We've met Anthony, we've met Angry Anderson, and he's not as bad as what he makes out to be.
I know. He turns out to be really nice. Don't tell anyone.
I know. Yeah. I know.
I thought we were bad because our comedy's really shit.
That too.
I thought that introduction, that little package you play, who were those people?
Okay, so actually, I'm glad you brought that up. So the lady that said, I like 2 holes so I can squirt. There was actually from a BBC show with one of the guys from Little Britain, I think.
Little Britain.
And he was hosting this show, and the woman was making donuts.
And she's a dame, mate.
Yeah, she's a dame. And she was talking about how she likes...
The dame of donuts. Yeah.
She likes to put 2 holes in it. She likes 2 holes so she can squirt, you know. And he's just complete... I think it was Matt Lucas. He's just not composing himself very well and ends up losing his shit. And he says, because we're children. And the other one, turns out... So we talked last week, I think it was on the show, about the family of porn and this woman who was searching for stepmom porn, as you do, and found her stepmom and her brother and her dad and realised that it was actually all happening in her house while she was eating chili.
No.
I'm going to burst the bubble.
I'm sorry I asked now.
I'm going to burst the bubble. She's actually a comedian in the States, and we're going to try and get her on the show.
I literally found out half an hour ago, and I'm still in shock because
I think I can continue, but I'm just processing all of that.
Now we have we're going to be talking about your comedy background and all the work that you've done and also the Laughter Advantage a little later in the show, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get a visit from K-Rudd himself.
Listen, I've spoken to him.
Yes.
He said he's willing to pop in.
Awesome.
The signs are good. He's very mercurial. He could just dash off to somewhere. But I'm pretty sure he's going to be here.
Awesome.
Political royalty.
Can't wait. But first, what's happened with crypto? Crypto has just gone crash overnight, and it's just seems like there's people all over the world that are It's like the great crash of Wall Street all over again.
Right. You know, it's funny. You mentioned this last week, right?
Yeah.
And you talked about how crypto was going on, and I was brushing it off, just going, yeah, there's always a story about crypto crashing. And by the time you've read the story and stuff, crypto's already on its way back up. But I've been doing a bit of research into this. This is actually a really big deal, what's going on, because even the stable coins, which are usually as stable as anything, and I'm learning a thing or two here as well, they have dropped by over 99%.
That's massive.
Oh, my God. That's bonkers.
And I can vouch for this if I can hop in, guys, if that's okay. Yes. I have a personal connection here because my son, Michael, has been so gung-ho about crypto. And he said, put everything you have in crypto. And he showed me his profits. This is about 2 weeks ago on Luna, which is the one that dropped by 99%. So I had to ring him yesterday to make sure he wasn't standing on a ledge
Right, fair
on the
enough.
top of a high building.
So let me calculate this out. My $10 that I've got in crypto, what's that worth now?
Oh, a banana skin.
Bugger all, I think is
Is
that the technical financial term?
Yes, that's right.
I would say 10 cents that'd
10
be worth.
cents. Jeez, that's a good profit margin. That's better than what you get from the banks.
Well, exactly. Thank God interest rates are going up. let's celebrate. Do you know, I bought my first apartment I bought in 1990 in Melbourne when I was on the big gig, which you kindly mentioned, in St Kilda. The interest rate was 17.5%.
I remember those days. Yep.
17.5.
I know.
I
What is
wasn't
it
in the
now?
market at that point, but my parents were, and I do remember the discussions that were being had in the other room.
Does that mean I'm your father, Andrew? Is that
Look, hey, who knows, really?
let's not discount it. You know?
Right. In the grand world of family porn and all the rest of it, who knows?
Yeah, it's amazing. It feels like the Four Yorkshiremen, you know, the famous Monty Python sketch.
Right.
You know, interest rates are 17.5%. But you tell kids that today, they won't
Yes,
believe
we
you.
used to live in a can and
Luxury.
and how many people went, oh, I've got to lock it in just in case it goes up further. So they lock it in for 3 years.
I remember my father telling me once he was excited because they locked their mortgage as a fixed mortgage at 13.5%.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good day.
Yes.
Yeah. My strategy's always been to buy high and sell low. That's my financial strategy. So that has worked out for me my whole life.
And there's a lot of people doing that with the crypto as well. But you know the interesting thing about the crypto, there are a few, and I won't call them conspiracies because usually conspiracies sit on the outside of the fringe before they be acknowledged by anybody as being actual truth. But there's a lot of articles out there about the fact that it may have even been an orchestrated crash, particularly by a couple of large health funds, BlackRock being one of them. Not health funds, merger,
hedge funds?
Thank you.
That's the
Thank
word.
you.
I'm here to help.
There. I was almost there. A couple of hedge funds, which, BlackRock is one of them. But it also appears that it could be, in fact, quite a catastrophic software-based failure because, of course, all these markets nowadays are all managed and co-managed by AI-driven software algorithms. And it appears that this one has particularly failed.
Well, that actually falls in line with what I heard because I heard it was an evil genius. So he's obviously using the AI to, get his plans in place.
Right.
Well, remember when we all got, vaccinated and we had the chip implanted
Yes.
Of course.
by Bill Gates? There's got to be a connection.
I think so. I think so.
That's just logical.
It appears that anybody who are operating in the crypto space now, of course, were doing so to get away from the banks. And partly the reason was when you got fucked by the banks, you didn't even have the opportunity of lubricant. So it appears now that lubricant's out the window for crypto as well, and you've just got to take it
as
raw and dry.
All
Right
natural.
Yeah. That's an image I have to go to sleep with tonight. Thank you.
I'm still trying to get the image out of my head of us organising a prostate manage for Anthony Albanese a couple of episodes ago.
Now, look, I don't get it, right? I don't get it because crypto has had so many scams, you would sort of think that people at this point would be like, well, I'm just going to be a little bit careful. But no. Let's put all of our money into it. Now, I don't know whether you guys have seen the story, the TV series on Netflix that's happening at the moment, but it all circles around a company called Quadriga and a guy by the name of Gerald Cotton. Now,
is this Trust No One?
Trust No One. That's the one.
Yeah.
Worth watching.
Yeah.
So he set up a website that was a trading platform that everyone put their money in, and there's this one Asian guy that put $400,000 in, and he featured very heavily in the show. And you kind of trust it, right? Because you can see you put your money in and the money goes up, and it's like, oh, look, I've made all this money, and it sort of goes up and down, and you keep it there because you want to hold on to it. When they started to take the money out, there were delays. No one could get their money. Suddenly, Gerald mysteriously dies in India. Here's a death certificate with Gerald's name, spelt wrong. Don't know why, but anyway, I'm sure there's a reason.
No body, is that right? There's no body.
So but he's the only one that has the keys to get the $250 million. So they look into the website and they find out that the website is actually fake, that that the money never ever existed there, and it all went. He spent it on other investments and outside. No one knows where it's gone. So you kind of think with all of this happening that people would just be like, I'm just going to be a bit wary, right?
You'd think.
Do you think Gerald might be in Sweden with long blonde hair and breasts? And $250 million.
Yes, exactly.
Right now.
That's right. If I'm going to live with $250 million, I'm going to have breasts, right? And
Yeah, I need to disguise myself.
That's it.
Yeah. It's so many of those, and I'm quite addicted to them now, the stories of scams and the Tinder swindler. I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's amazing what people will believe. It's just incredible, don't you think?
I say the same exactly about the biggest swindle of all, which is this federal election that's happening. And the bloody politicians around us, but I guess we'll get into a little bit of that later. They're swindling up, 26, 27 million people at the moment?
It's so dull, isn't it?
And someone can lie, a prime minister can lie and everyone just believes him. So,
Yeah, but it's not a lie if you emphatically deny it, though.
Exactly, exactly.
And if you're playing a ukulele, then everything you say is true.
Exactly.
I think most people agree with that.
Most people believe it. It's so believable. Now, we're also talking about scams and things that are happening. What was the story about this guy that owned the super yacht that they found all this cocaine?
Right. Okay. So it all steps back a couple of days. So basically, a diver washed up on the shore, like a scuba diver.
Yeah.
And
he was dead.
As it turns out, he washed up
Was he
alongside.
dead?
He was dead.
Right.
Yeah, dead as a doornail. Apparently, they tried to revive him, but that's just all a sort of statement that comes out. It's part of a textbook statement that comes out to say that he kind of died at the scene. So basically, the long short of it is there are these massive super tankers, and there's an actual underwater access into these super tankers, believe it or not. And I didn't even know about this, where they had basically tied a whole bunch of cocaine, 50 kilos of cocaine or something to it, perhaps a lot more. And as the super tankers come into the shoreline, divers go out in the little rubber dinghies, go underneath, untie it, throw it onto the rubber boat, and off they go. And they've got their cocaine beautifully smuggled all the way in. Well, as it turns out, something went wrong, and one of the divers, one assumes, drowned or got injured somehow and ran into troubles. So where the super yacht guy apparently or allegedly comes into it is he was trying to leave town. He was literally trying to get on a plane out of Dodge when he was apprehended by the AFP. Now, the thing is, the big question is, and here at the Bad Boys podcast, we are asking the big questions.
The hard questions,
right?
Yes.
Right. Sure. How else are you supposed to pay for the running costs of a super yacht without a massive cocaine habit?
Or at least a shit ton of cocaine that you can sell to everyone that's helping you
Well, as it turns out, this guy might have been a habit in an unto itself. Yeah. That's right.
It's simple economics, surely. Yeah, cocaine-based currency.
Are you sure his name wasn't Marty Bird, and lived in the Ozarks?
I saw a news item on this. Was it the guy who owned the super yacht or rented them out, and he tried out for Survivor?
Yeah, it's the same guy. He rents out these super yachts and stuff, and apparently he's a massive in-demand sort of captain and all that sort of stuff. But as it turns out, it's possible, allegedly, as reported, that he, of course, has been doing a little bit of diddling on the side.
I know why he's in demand. Because he's got a shit ton of cocaine to hand out.
It'd be funny, it's, parents' day at school and before the scuba diver died, and he goes in to tell people about his job. Well, kids, I dive under tankers and there's a shitload of cocaine there, and I've got some here, just pass it around, everyone. Not too much, Tommy.
And it pays $46,000 an hour and it's good work.
Yeah, that's it.
Do you think he'd be underwater there with a mask on? And at one point you think, what the fuck am I doing? This is such a stupid thing to do.
I just got this visual of, he's stuffing the cocaine into his mask and suddenly it explodes and just goes,
Yeah.
It's just too much.
Well, apparently they tried to give him mouth-to-mouth, but his nose was blocked.
Right, yes, but the paramedics were high as fuck. So.
1, 2, 3.
What is it with rich people and cocaine? Seriously.
Yeah. Right. Well,
I don't know.
It's funny. Whenever I've asked that to people, their first response of, have you ever tried cocaine? Of which I say no. And they go, well, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have smelt it from a close distance.
Is that a bit like Bill Clinton saying he didn't inhale?
Yeah. And as far as drugs go, I mean, you have 2 or 3 lines and you're buoyant and you're feeling good, and then it just becomes a punishment. You're just doing more and more, and your jaw's like this, and it's just such a weird drug.
But it's really become I guess the old person's drug now. Now it's like ice instead, isn't it? Really, that's become the big thing.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm a little out of touch.
You can kind of tell the ice.
I think you're on the pulse there.
I'm happy to be out of touch on that one. That ice stuff is shitty stuff.
You can tell the ice addicts. They're the ones with the missing teeth.
Yeah. I do remember being with 2 comedy friends. I won't name them. And there was a white powder involved, which I think was cocaine. Could have been baby laxative. But I think it was cocaine. And comics, as you would guess, are always making jokes.
Yep.
And it was my turn to inhale the aforementioned white powder, and someone said something really funny, and instead of inhaling, I exhaled. And the room was full of this dust, and suddenly things weren't that funny anymore.
No, they're like scrambling.
I was extremely unpopular.
Yeah. Everybody running around licking the walls and the surfaces.
Breathe it in. Yeah, it's a weird drug. I don't know why it's so popular.
Yeah.
But,
as it turns out, it's very, very popular also amongst police, because they're the ones trying to search for it and find for it all the time. Why don't they just buy it like the rest of us?
Well, exactly.
Well, not like the rest of us, like some of us.
Yes, good point. Yes, of course. That's right. Yes,
just clarifying that one, Andrew.
That's the official.
You've got a little sideline happening,
that's right.
Andrew.
I wish.
I noticed some scuba gear behind that curtain.
I tell you what, if I did, then cost of living wouldn't be too much of a concern.
Yeah, living might be a concern if you're a scuba diver. But
I lived with a guy. Didn't realize he actually hid his ice habit. He hid it so well. Lived with him for I think it was close on a year. I realized he had an ice habit when I walked out at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he's standing there, no shirt on, disco music going, just pumping. I say, hey, how you going? What's up? And I'm just like, oh my God, it's too early for this. And I went back to bed.
It wasn't Fruit Loops?
Oh, I confronted him and I said, dude, what's going on? Obviously you've got a meth problem. And he said, no. No, I got some extra strong Sudafed from when I was overseas. It's like, yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. That actually reminds me of a story, which is a cute story. This is a cute one. True story. There used to be, and I don't think it exists anymore for reasons that are, I guess, now obvious, but there used to be cough drops called ice.
Yes,
and the idea was it would soothe the back of your throat.
Right, yes.
So, and, I used to take it, because of, gigging all the time, get a sore throat. And then I noticed when my daughter was 4 years old and she was looking at me really worried like this. And I said, Brody, what's wrong? He said, Dad, you're on ice. And she'd seen a program, Daddy's on ice. So I was able to assure her it was for medicinal purposes only.
There's a lot of things that were inappropriately named. Do you ever remember the chewing gum called Spurt?
I do now.
I know you kind of don't remember it until suddenly it's like, oh my God, we used to eat that, and it used to just squirt into your mouth. It's like
there was something in the middle, and you chew, then you get the release of a sickly kind of sweet saccharine,
which
thing.
is pretty much
Spurt.
Yes.
Oh, that's misguided, isn't it? Yeah.
like I'm sure they knew when they were making that chewing gum, right? I'm sure someone knew, okay, we're going to do this. It's going to be a laugh, one of those ones that we'll never hear about, but, it'll go down in history.
Let's call it Spurt.
Yeah, okay, but if they were really good at their job, wouldn't they have made the substance on the inside more salty rather than sweet?
I like the way you think, Andrew.
But then no one would have had it, so,
Maybe it wouldn't have sold as well.
Just a release of salt.
That's it. Protein. Oh, dear. Now, we are going to take a quick break. Oh, we're going to talk about something else?
Well, remember we were going to talk about the cost of living.
Oh, yes, cost of living. Cost of living's gone up.
I realised, everything's gone up, and we're all feeling it at the petrol bowser. We're feeling it in the supermarket, feeling it everywhere. And of course, our wages aren't going up as readily because wages haven't done much in Australia for the last 10 years. No. But even in the UK, they've got nothing going on over there, despite the fact Boris Johnson has been entertaining them for how many years now. But they've got nothing going on there. So they're writing articles about the cost of living in Australia going up. And their articles are saying that Woolworths and Coles shopping adventures are costing somewhere between twice and 3 times as much.
Is that right?
Right. Yeah. Fascinating. Wow. I mean, I've noticed it. I mean, our grocery, we've got 3 teenage boys in the house, and our weekly grocery bill is somewhere between $500 and $800 a week.
Yeah, it's gone up.
Wow.
Definitely gone up.
In a big way.
Teenage boys are the worst. I remember when Michael, my son, the aforementioned crypto genius, when he decided he was going to work out and get muscly.
Right.
And he was eating, 3 or 4 chickens at every meal. So I feel for you having 3 of them. Yeah. That would be expensive.
Yeah. 3 teenage boys. God help us all.
But what is the solution? Just raw meat in a pan or something?
Usually it's, chicken nuggets, hot chips, lots of hamburgers.
Health foods.
Making sure everything's on tap and readily available for them to start shoveling.
You could always put them on a vegan diet. I mean, there's plenty of vegans to go around.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. Yes, and
I'm actually one of them.
There you go.
Very good.
Go easy on me.
They taste good as well. I once had a lady that once told me that vegans tasted good, and I just sort of said, "Look, each to their own. Your decisions are yours, love."
You're very welcome to have a nibble.
So
I got interested. Just pay. You go to the supermarket, you use a card, and then you think about it later.
Yeah, I do.
If you're me, I've mentioned my financial prowess before. But when someone said, coffees are going up to $5, I suddenly, that is now my drug of choice.
Right.
I've got to have the bean. Yeah. So I guess there's something for everyone.
But we become used to coffee costs, really. I mean, you go in and you get a coffee and it's suddenly at $6 and it's like you don't even question it. You just go, does it taste good? If it tastes good, I don't care.
Yeah. I need it. I must have it. Yeah.
So apart from cocaine going up, the price of cocaine going up, Andrew, what else has gone up?
Right, okay. So cost of motor vehicles has gone up, for instance. And we all know used cars have gone up quite a bit. Now, used car values don't go up. They only ever go down. But in the last couple of years, they have gone up. And in fact, my insurance, so I've got a Toyota Prado and I've got a Toyota Camry, which not a Camry, Corolla.
I was going to say.
Which the kids drive.
A Camry, Jesus.
So we bought a Corolla for the kids to drive around in so that they don't fuck my car up, basically.
Because he drives, what do you drive, Andrew? You drive a...
I've got an M6.
Ah, there it is.
Right. So, and the kids don't drive that car. Well,
that's the drug money, Shane.
That's the drug. And I mean, like, here he is talking about petrol prices rising, right?
Yeah.
Yet, he chooses a car that has to have the premium unleaded, right?
I think we know what's going on.
The guy said to me the other day, he's going, what about the price of petrol? And while I'm filling up my car, what about the price of petrol going through the roof? It's bloody ridiculous. And I just sort of looked at him and I looked at my car and I looked at him and I said, mate, anybody who buys a car like this and you're worried about the price of petrol, it's all backwards.
Yeah.
It's all wrong.
But, the interesting thing is we've got used car values going up. So my insurance got the new, note in from the insurance company. You've got to pay for the insurance, blah, 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 blah. That insurance, the actual the value of the vehicle has gone up by $1,500 on the Corolla.
Okay.
The actual value of the Prado when we last renewed it, which was 6 months ago, went up by $3,500.
Wow.
How does a used car value go up?
Because they can't get new cars at the moment. That's why. So a lot of the dealers are struggling because the new cars are not available. Obviously,
people don't want to wait 18
COVID
months.
thing, blah, blah, blah. It takes 18 months. So people are going out buying used cars, and so the used cars price has just gone through the roof.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason why as well is also because the government handed out a buttload of cash over the last couple of years to try and keep everybody's head above water. And look, fair enough. Let's just say it worked. But then a lot of people put the money aside and then they had all of this money spare. So apparently the value of drugs has gone up as well. So the price of cocaine has gone through the roof. But one unexpected thing that I did a lot of research over the last few days, baby pools, inflatable baby pools, the price of them have gone through the roof. And do you know why?
You're going to tell us. It's not because of babies.
It's got nothing to do with jelly wrestling, but it has a lot to do with also the cost of champagne.
Oh.
Wow.
People with too much money and they want to get, the gangster video thing happening, they go and get their inflatable baby pool and they fill it up
with champagne.
With the champagne and stuff like that so they can pour it all over the busty babes.
That's a waste of money. Did they drink it afterwards?
Well, big straws, I think. Yeah, that's exactly right. And sleep it off.
I thought it was baby pools because that's where the drug smugglers practice their scuba diving.
There you go. I think
it makes
you're right.
sense.
I think you're right. I think Andrew is completely off base on this.
Maybe they fill the baby pools full of cocaine and then snort straight off it.
Yes. Well, I actually did. Because you mentioned the big gig, and I'll mention it again. I used to do a character called Adam, who was an advertising character.
Yes, I remember that.
He had a big coke addiction. That was the character's thing, and so we give him more and more coke every time it was time for his sketch.
Yes.
So a few lines, then really thick lines, and in the end, he did put on a scuba mask. And there's a huge pile of pretend cocaine, and I just shoved my head into it. So it's all connected, guys.
Right.
It is.
It certainly
all
is.
Connected.
Now,
baby pool champagne.
We want to hear about about some more of your sordid stories in comedy. So let's have a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to chat about go trip down memory lane with
let's go deep
with Anthony.
Go
yes.
deep. Yeah.
Sounds great. Hi, I'm Shane from The Bad Boys, and I've been creating podcasts since 2015. I've appeared in marketing conferences in Bali, Sydney, online to talk about the importance of podcasts. I currently produce 23 active podcasts around Australia, Indonesia, UK, and America. And of course, with the help of Andrew Hackett, have been responsible for the Bad Boys podcast. 250,000 downloads, number 3 in comedy on Apple, and featured on New and Noteworthy. And now I run the Podcast Power Academy, where I'll teach you how to podcast. Now, you could be a coach starting a show about what you teach people. You could have a hobby or sports interest that you just want to have a talk about. Or you could have a desire to start comedy like the Bad Boys and give that a crack. Whatever it is you want to do, the Podcast Power Academy can give you the tools to make it happen. So jump on and try the ultimate podcast mentoring course, the Podcast Power Academy. Click the link in the show notes or visit Bad Boys FM and hit the button that says Learn to Podcast. It's never too late to start your own podcast. This is the Bad Boys Podcast. Welcome back to the Bad Boys and our special guest today, Anthony Ackroyd.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, guys. I've learned so much.
Now, I heard you were one of the Doug Anthony All-Stars, unofficial Doug Anthony All-Stars. Is that correct?
That I am?
Yeah.
Well, I think this will be a surprise to the Doug Anthony.
But like that, you used to show up on their shows and.
We were on the big gig together.
Yes.
And they're great guys, and we used to hang out, in the dressing room and occasionally socially. And then I think the only sketch of theirs I've ever been in, they said, "Oh, we need a hippie in this sketch, someone to play the part of a hippie." That's all they told me.
Right.
Now, if anyone knows the Doug Anthonys, they're very full on, very funny, transgressive. I thought, what could possibly go wrong with being a hippie?
Everything.
I had one line, which I think was "Hi, guys." So the time came for me to do my hippie bit. They're halfway through the sketch, and I walked out and said, "Oh, hi, guys." And they went, "Look, a fucking hippie." And then beat the shit out of me on live television. So, yeah, that's my Doug Anthony All-Stars
experience.
A cameo appearance. Yes.
Well,
but they're great guys. Very funny. Very funny.
So if you're I guess doing a cameo on the Bad Boys, can we, virtually bash the shit out of you or something like that?
Please be my guest. I don't have the hippie costume, but
Now the big gig years. I mean, you'd only lasted for I think 2 or 3 years, and that was it. Three years. But it made an impact.
Yeah, it was quite an incredible show, and it was a real watershed, I think, for Australian comedy because it was totally live. So you were flying by the seat of your pants. You had a rehearsal that day before we went live. And it was either sink or swim. I think that's why the audience loved it. They sensed that tension of things could go wrong, and sometimes they did, and you had to cover them. But there was this real energy, and, we could swear, we could carry on. Ted Robinson was the director. He was very open to ideas. Patrick Cook was one of the writers. He'd help out. But you go in and say, okay, I want to be Adam, and this time I want to plunge my face into a mountain of cocaine. And they say, okay, let's get the props onto that. So, it was very adventurous, very exciting, great cast, so a great time in my career for sure.
I mean, just looking at some of the names, right? So Glenn Nicholas, Judith Lucy, Denise Scott, Gene Kitson, Jamoan, Leno and Woodley. Scared Weird Little Guys. I mean, all of these guys went on. It was almost like a launch pad, right? Because they all went on to massive things.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And there was, I was on the big gig. There was the Comedy Company. I did one season on that. But that was going on in tandem to the big gig. And then there was Fast Forward.
Yes.
So there's all this kind of explosion of energy and people doing different things. And in a way, it was quite innocent. It wasn't comedy is much more corporatized these days, and the structures are in there. There's agents and managers. And there was some of that, but not a lot of that. So it was a launching pad for a lot of talent, which was great.
And you didn't worry about things like cancel culture back then?
No, it was a lot safer, so to speak, in terms of covering different subject matter. And it's a real minefield now. I'm glad I'm no longer doing stand-up. Because it must be very difficult to walk around that and choose which, am I going to be transgressive and just let it rip? Am I going to hold back? Am I going to be a little bit woke around the edges? So, much, much more difficult these days. Am I going to get slapped on stage when I make a joke?
Yes. I was about to say, stand-up nowadays, you need bloody protection and a suit, don't you? Like an armour.
Yeah. And I remember saying to my wife, this is really dangerous because this will open a door in the minds of slightly unhinged people.
Well, of course, Chappelle got tackled
and then
on
Chappelle
stage.
got attacked, and there's other attacks have happened with less famous people, so they don't get reported as much. So that was quite a dangerous moment. So, stand-up's dangerous enough already.
But I remember we were talking with Akmal Saleh, and he was saying, because we asked this question about how far do you go, and he said, the moment that you start to question how far you should go is the day that you should give up comedy, because when you're on stage and you're in the moment and you're saying things, like we've got the luxury here where we can edit things out if we don't, want to go to air. But if you're on stage, you've got to commit to what you're saying 120%. Otherwise, the audience knows it.
Yeah, that word commitment. I teach comedy now at an acting college called Screenwise in Sydney. And that's one of the big things I stress. You've got to commit to your comic identity, whether it's a comic role, and particularly stand-up. Yes. I mean, you're spot on. If you are not totally congruent and committed, the audience sense it. And then you'll fail. You'll become watered down, you become mediocre. So for better or worse, you've just got to commit. Yeah. And the thing, one of my little rants is that people no longer understand irony. And irony is saying one thing because you actually mean the opposite. And people they take everything literally. So that's another danger that people have to deal with.
So irony would be saying that Andrew has to, drive expensive cars to support his cocaine habit, right?
Well, I'm hoping that's the opposite of the truth.
Look, I'm going to plead the fifth on all of that. This is the example I give my acting students. If comic characters on the floor and another character just walks past them, and the first character lifts up their hand and says, "Oh, thanks for the help," they actually mean you haven't helped me. That's a very simplistic way of putting it. So a lot of what comedians need the license to say the outrageous, and that's what audiences want. They want us to be outrageous and to say things that are out of the ordinary and break social norms. Right, they do, because ultimately speaking, I think a lot of us, we live in this controlled bubble around us that is politically correct, where you just can't express the way you may want to. And people go to comedy shows to almost be set free through the expression of someone else being free in what they want to say.
Yeah, very well put. And it's almost like the comics can be the subconscious of a society, where all the dark material, and it comes out in a way that we can process, and it relieves tension. And a lot of what comics talk about, in every subject, there's a way of making anything funny, I believe, and nothing should be taboo. And it depends on the intention behind it and how it's presented. Unfortunately now it must be very difficult for new stand-ups. Because I did my first gig in 1982 at the Sydney Comedy Store, and the compere was Rodney Roode, who you probably have heard of.
Set the tone for that, yeah.
And people were it was like this incredible liberation. If you think we'd been through, Fraser and all of that kind of repressive governing kind of mode. And we were up there for the first time. People were talking about real things on stage, like sex, drugs, rock and roll, culture, television. We could swear. And people were just like, just bowled over Now it's commonplace, of course. And now more restrictions coming in. So it's a weird phase of comedy.
So things like the Melbourne Comedy Festival, I mean, do you find that even that is sort of, restrictive? Do they hand you a form and say, please sign this before you get up on stage?
Well, I haven't done it for a long time. I hope that's not happening. I really hope that's not happening. But I have heard of comics doing gigs and being literally handed a sheet of paper with, please don't talk about the CEO, please don't talk about sex, please don't, if they're doing that kind of a company gig for a company, or even some venues will say, please don't. So it is, a restrictive time. If you go back to the time of people like George Carlin, who's my favorite comic, yes, American comic, and he talked about the 7 words you can't say on television, which you can now say,
yes,
basically at the right time. But, George's comedy, I'm sure he would be picked up for some of the brilliant things. Yeah. And it is a danger. I think we're going to have to work our way through this and come out the other side and educate people about what comedy's about.
I mean, you've pushed the boundaries yourself, right?
I
have. Both in fashion and also in what you say. Because I'm going to say, 90s fashion.
I'll accept that observation.
90s fashion. Yeah. I think you actually got up on stage one time and said, look at my shirt, it looks like I've thrown up.
It's pretty close to what I said, yes, yes.
And then I think you also came out with a monk haircut one time.
I used
in the top and
I used to do a priest character when I began.
That's commitment, isn't it? That's commitment to the role.
Yeah. I mean, comedy should be about the absurd and the, kookiness and weirdness. And because everyone, let's face it, has kookiness and weirdness inside them. And you're up on stage to represent that in some way. And you're saying what everyone's thinking.
Yes.
Right.
If you can do that, you will succeed as a comic. And there's this kind of sense of relief and joy that comes through that. So I think it's very important that we keep pushing the boundaries in some way.
Yeah.
Maybe not with my shirts, but,
Well, and of course, when K-Rudd got up on stage at, I think it was an event for Julia Gillard, Kevin Rudd famously said that he remembered meeting Julia at a pole dancing club. And then started to talk about how she wasn't very good at pole dancing. I mean, like that, that's pushing the boundaries.
Melding different lines into each other.
I was condensing it.
Well, what happened? Shall I tell you the story?
Yeah, go for it.
With Julia. This is when I was impersonating Kevin Rudd. And I was booked to do the AFL Grand Final breakfast.
Right.
And Kevin had just been by Julia.
Yeah.
He felt a sharp stabbing pain in his back. And everyone thought, how's this going to go down? Because there's a table. I don't know if you've ever seen The Breakfast. There's a table of celebrities at the front on the stage, and Julia Gillard was one of them. And they hadn't told her I was coming on.
Oh, no.
So I forget who some football identity was the host. And they said, we now have a special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, he's flown in and he can't wait to get on stage, Kevin Rudd. And if you can imagine me off stage looking at the people on stage, and I remember Julia's double take when she heard Kevin Rudd. The face went in several different directions at once. And then there was kind of relief. Oh, it's not the real one. But she took it very well, I must say. She took it very well and laughed.
She always seemed to have a good sense of humour.
Julia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin, I don't know, but he would never work with me.
Oh, really?
Because there were times when we were on the same bill. I used to do the Woodford Folk Festival in Queensland, and he was on the bill, and I was doing my impersonation of Kevin Rudd. And I said to the organisers, let's work together.
Yeah.
The real Kevin can come on, then I'll come on. It'll be hilarious. But we heard through his people that Kevin wouldn't be doing that, so that was a pity.
Yeah.
But I will say this, in fairness to Kevin, later on, this is a few years later on, someone on Twitter sent a tweet to Kevin and myself and all that person's followers and said, "Oh, Kevin, you and Anthony Ackroyd should have a rud-off." and Kevin replied, and I like this, he said, "Well, I'm happy to do so, but I'm confident Anthony would win." So I thought that shows some sense of humour about it.
Yeah. I think he's lightened up over the years.
They don't tend to like their being made fun of. I mean, Pauline Hanson, for example, with the Pauline Pants Down character.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
and of course, the big thing in the 90s, of course, was it was late 80s, wasn't it? 90s was How Green Is My Cactus?
Yes.
Taking the piss out of Bob Hawke and John Howard and all the rest of them.
I think that still exists now. I think it's still going. How Green Is My Cactus?
Is that right?
Serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. It's the longest running radio comedy show. Yeah.
And they're still taking the piss out of politicians. I mean, hey, look, they've got a lot of material coming out.
They'd probably be having a lot of fun right about now.
Yeah, but I think it's essential. It's one of the functions of comedy is this egalitarian evening up of status and bringing the high status people down and elevating, the fool. And, I got to know Bob Hawke really well. I did a gig for a charity, and it was it wasn't a Labor Party fundraiser, but it was associated with the Labor Party, this charity event. And there was Peter Garrett, who I knew, and Wayne Swan and all these, and Bob Hawke. So I came on and did Kevin, and everyone was laughing. All the politicians were laughing, but Bob Hawke was really laughing. Yeah. He was almost falling off his chair. And I was on holiday in Hobart. I was about to do the Woodford Folk Festival, and I was just going up there to talk about laughter, which I do in my other life, talk about the power of laughter. And the phone rang, and was the organizer of Woodford, Bill. And Bill said, I'm with Bob Hawke. He's wondering if you would do your act with him when he presents his serious talk at Woodford.
Oh, nice.
And I said, yeah, I'm happy to. I'd love to. And so hung up, and I'm talking to my friends. So I'm going to walk with Bob Hawke. The phone rang again. So I picked up my phone and said, oh, hi, hello. And I heard this voice going, hello, Anthony. It's Bob Hawke here. And, I was immediately, in awe.
Yes.
As you would be. Yeah.
And he said, would you mind working with me up at Woodford? That'd be great. And I was trying to be proper, So I said, Bob, I'd love to. And I do remember you being at one of my performances, and I remember you found it quite funny. And he said, funny, mate, I fucking pissed myself. So we got on really well. And
he was the working man.
Yeah, I got to know him really well.
He was the working man's politician. I mean, I don't think there was anyone that didn't love him.
Exactly. And we would walk around Woodford together, which is a crowd of, 40,000 people. And everyone wanted to talk to Bob, and his skill was he could adjust the way he spoke to people. Like I saw him speaking to politicians very, seriously. And then some guy in tie-dyed jeans and a, rat's tail would come up, and he'd adjust himself and go, hey, how you going, mate? And that's, so
Nice.
I totally agree. He was the ultimate politician, people's politician.
Yeah.
He's the politician we really need in today's
right
day.
Now, yeah.
Someone who's relatable, someone who's real, someone who probably doesn't lie with every breath.
I know, it's become so, and I saw this actually, because about 2000 and late 2007, 2008, I started to do Kevin, and every audience enjoyed laughing at Kevin. The Liberal people, the Labor people, the union people, the business people, everyone laughed at my version of Kevin. Yep. And we know what happened to Kevin. And then I was actually asked to do, impersonate Julia Gillard, which I did a few times.
Yes.
It's on YouTube if you dare to check it out. But by the time I got to Tony Abbott, the atmosphere had changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the gig I did with Tony Abbott was for the Sydney Swans. I'm a Sydney Swans ambassador, and I'd done Rudd for them a lot, and they loved it. But when I did Tony Abbott, the room divided. And some people pissed themselves and others were kind of, this isn't funny. And that was when I noticed the change with politicians becoming very factional, very, very much aligned with their own point of view, and that affected the voters.
Yeah.
So things have changed a lot now. And, I think to try and cope with that, politicians now are putting on their own performance.
I was just going to say, we don't even need anyone taking the piss out of ScoMo. He just does it himself, right?
That's right.
Now, tell us a bit about your the Laughter Advantage, which is the program that you've put together, because everyone needs to laugh. We love that.
Yeah, this began, I did the whole stand-up comedy trip, and I think Good News Week was the last major show I did a series of. And I'd become really interested in the effects of laughter on people, which are incredible. And I would see this when I started off as a neophyte stand-up. Rodney would go on, the aforementioned Rodney Roode, and kill it for 40 minutes. And then he'd say, let's bring on Anthony Ackroyd, new comic.
Oh, no.
Thanks a lot, Rodney. And people would be, I'd see people, you could tell from their body language, bored or tired or distracted, pissed, openly hostile, can tell from their face they're just waiting to, heckle you. Yeah. And our job as new comics was to change the energy in the audience.
Yes.
Through laughter. And as, I got better at that, and I would see those changes start to happen, and the bored people would become interested, and the drunk person would become alert, and the hostile person would become friendly. And that began my interest in studying laughter. So I started to do workshops. My main workshop is called Stress Less, Laugh More, which people can find out about on my website, thelaughter.advantage.com.
Yes.
Nice.
That's my little plug. So
we will actually put that in the description if you're listening and you want to go on and check it out. So,
Thank you very much for that, guys. And so I became very interested in laughter, and I could go on about this for ages, but I'll keep it short. And I explored laughter in different ways. I became a clown doctor for 4 years. I worked in hospitals with sick kids.
Yeah, nice.
And again, I would see the changes in the kids. Some of them were very sick, in oncology department, the burns unit, and they would just light up, and the energy would change. I worked with people with dementia, saw the same thing happen. I've worked with people who've been through trauma, PTSD, and if you don't, if you're not dealing with those issues, it still changes your energy in an amazing way. And I've done a lot of companies working with their staff, and the people booking me love to hear this, but it makes people more productive, and that leads to more profit. They like that part, but apart from that, it just changes the whole culture of the company. This is the power of laughter. So, good on you guys for doing what you.
Well,
you
that's
do.
why we do what we do. I mean, when we first started this, it was let's. In fact, we didn't even think that we were funny when we first started, and it just sort of all happened, and
we were just having a ball. We're just enjoying ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that is the key to laughter.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny, actually. If you ask my wife, so Shane and I have been doing this for
2 years now.
I don't know, 2.5 years, something like that.
Well, okay.
And it kind of kicked off because I didn't have much to do at the beginning of COVID because we had the bushfires and stuff like that. I was out of work at the time and just sort of chilling out. And he sort of said, look, hey, I've got this idea. Let's give it a go. And I thought, well, I've got nothing else to do. Why not? And we were having so much fun with it. And, for the first 12 or 18 months or something, it didn't pay. Like, it didn't pay off at all. And we were doing daily shows at the time too, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And my wife, I just say to her, we had an interview just yesterday, and I came out of that interview high as a kite. We had such a ball. It was a good interview. It worked. People are going to engage with it. All these positive things came out of it. And I went upstairs and she noticed how high I was. And her comment was, I'm really so glad that you have that. You have that outlet. You have that connection. Don't ever downplay how important that is to you. And what she's actually referring to is how important the comedy aspect is, and the ability to just speak my mind and say my bit and get it out of me. How important that is to my mental health.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I've always said every man needs a project, but I actually disagree with that now. I think some men need a project and other men need an outlet. And, I have my projects and they feed me beautifully, but this outlet, this show, honestly, I don't give two fucks whether I get paid or not. I enjoy it.
Awesome.
I love it. which is good, actually, which is really good because I don't get paid much at all. So,
thank God you got the cocaine trade on the side.
No, right? Hey, right. Hey, look, when that's going well and stuff like that, that's right. We're free to do whatever we want.
But listen, I totally agree with everything you've just said and totally validate that. And I will get, my wife will tell you, we should get them together. But I get depressed if I don't have a performance out. When the pandemic hit, there was no performance.
Right.
And I really had to work on keeping my mental state even, which I did. But, performance changes everything.
Yeah.
In terms of your energy as the performer, and hopefully the audience as well. And one of the great pleasures of my life is seeing an audience leaving, laughing their heads off, completely changed. It's just wonderful.
Have you ever thought, just to lay a seed, to grow, have you ever thought of having your own podcast?
Yes, I'm getting one together for the Laughter Advantage.
Nice.
Bloody fabulous.
That's it. Everyone needs to have their podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And it's a way, as maybe what you're saying, Andrew, and you probably agree, Shane, it's that outlet of, and you can be at home and do it, about, and just talking and bullshitting and, riffing off other people, and there's nothing like
because that's what it is.
It doesn't even matter if nobody's listening either.
Exactly.
It's interesting because, someone actually said to us on a post, it's like we're two blokes at a pub having a beer and a laugh, and that's how we come across. And I think that's really important because, in fact, I was just answering a question. Someone was saying, "Hey, how do I start a comedy podcast? Can you give us some tips?" And I mean, it was simply just get out there and have fun. Don't think too much about what you're saying. Right. Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Don't second guess it either.
Don't second guess it.
I think it's that relaxation you're talking about is also stand-up.
Yes.
And the audience if they think you're nervous, they worry for you.
Yeah.
If they think you're actually angry, like really not comedy angry, but really angry, they'll get worried.
Yeah.
So if you're relaxed and, I always say to my acting students, my comedy students, if there were no mistakes in life, there would be no comedy. Because all of comedy is built around mistakes and, people slipping on banana skins to, all the sophisticated ways we can. And we're just saying we're all human beings,
Right.
We're all human beings. We're all in this together. We've all got our flaws and our faults. And I think that's, one of the big benefits of doing comedy and listening and viewing comedy.
But I agree with that. And even now, there'll be certain things that are said just around the house, and that I'll automatically go, oh, I can use that, like it's just finding the funny in the ordinary. Not that, Tanya, is impressed on it. She goes, I have to actually think about what I say now.
It would be always funny going back to the early Comedy Store days of the 80s.
Yeah.
And there was if you made it to they call them feature acts, and there would be a table that only, I wasn't on it, then I was on it. And there'd be people might remember some of them, George Smelovich, Vince Sorrenti, Rick Carter. We'd all be riffing along, and then someone would say something pretty good, and pretty funny. And then everyone would go, oh, Okay.
Yeah.
Write that one down and
I'm
use
writing that down.
You know what I love? We're in the kitchen. My wife and I are bantering off each other and stuff like that, having a fat old time. And then suddenly she pauses and she looks at me seriously and says, "That's not to go on the show."
Yes.
So it's like, oh.
Yes, I've been told that many times. I understand completely. You are not using that.
Right.
Okay.
Well, probably not,
Yeah.
but maybe.
When you're not around.
And
How do I
everything's
rename it?
usable. I think that's the great thing about comedy.
Yeah.
If you're a comedian or you're involved in comedy, if something horrible happens, the silver lining is I can talk about that.
You know what?
Yeah.
I agree with you. There's a comedian. She's a Gatsby. She's a
Hannah Gadsby.
yes,
Yeah.
Hannah Gadsby,
Yeah.
and she grew up in Smithton in Tasmania, and she was completely smashed growing up because she was a lesbian living in a Christian sort of community, and she now uses her comedy. She uses that in comedy just to basically take the power away from it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really wonderful. Yeah, no, she's very good.
She is.
And that's the kind of what we've been talking about, comedy's function.
Yeah.
To explore the material that maybe is a little uncomfortable and make it palatable in some way. So people think about it,
Yeah.
So I think that's very important.
That's excellent. Well, we are going to be back in a minute, and hopefully good old K-Rudd might be coming out.
I'll go and get him. I'll go
You'll
and
get
him
him?
for you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I can hear him talking out. Yeah.
Anthony Ackroyd, thank you for joining us on The Bad Boys.
My pleasure. Kevin!
If you like your nuts being gently cupped by an angel, then Man Up Down Under are the duds for you. Environmentally friendly with bamboo inserts that are soft, strong, and lifts your weight with ease. Longer in the legs so they stay put. They're cool in summer and warmer when it matters. Man Up Down Under, underwear your girl will want to see you in and that you won't want to take off. Go to manupdownunder.com.au and buy a week's supply for your package because your junk deserves the very best. This is the Bad Boys Podcast. Welcome back to the Bad Boys, and it is our pleasure. Hang on, let me just cue the Advanced Australia Fair music. We have the one and only Kevin Rudd, K-Rudd, Kevin07. Welcome to the Bad Boys.
G'day, it's great to be with you. I'm here just to lend my support to your podcast, just by saying a few words, by sharing a few thoughts, and as I do wherever I go, uplifting people with the power I call Kevinspiration.
It's great to have you on the show, mate.
It's great to be had.
So tell us about the rise to, the highest office in the country. I mean, Prime Minister.
Well, guys, people often ask me, Kevin, how did you become Prime Minister? Or sometimes they ask, Kevin, how did you ever become Prime Minister?
Same.
Well, I came from humble beginnings, as you might know. I grew up in the great state of Queensland in a little town called Nambour. And they say that two things have come out of Nambour of consequence, the big pineapple and Big Kev. You might say that the raw end of the pineapple was inserted into Big Kev back in 2010, but I'm not bitter.
Yes, and I don't think you're as prickly as a pineapple either. I think you're very, very pleasant and,
I appreciate that.
Yes. Now, Andrew, have you got a question for Kev?
Yeah. Tell me, mate, I mean, back in the early days, there was you and Joe Hockey on Sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
But, two big personalities and everything. But the big question is, did anyone have a big influence on you growing up?
Well, actually, Andrew, it was back in Nambour. There was an old man, his name was Master Chow, and he was a big influence on me. He was always telling, funny stories that were humorous, but yet had a moral point. And I remember, I will never forget this. He took me aside one day and he said the following. Sheshe ni ha, ni jainibang, jaizang ni hashi, nuho shaka shai. How true.
So true.
Wow. That's just, it hit me right there.
I think that says it all, guys.
It does. Now, you spend a lot of time, Andrew's lost it, you spend a lot of time in New York at the moment, right? What's in New York that keeps you so busy?
Well, I have a long association with New York, and I was actually eavesdropping on your conversation with my good friend Anthony Ackroyd. And you might have mentioned this, that I had an incident in New York. I went to a wonderful venue called Scores Nightclub, where they had some very exotic female dancers who were very flexible. And as they performed their act, I remember thinking to myself, polls do matter. And that was certainly true back in 2010. Now, let me clear this up. I have a good relationship with Julia Gillard. We have always been friends. Maybe along the way, a couple of hiccups, but I helped her actually back in 2010 with her campaign.
Yes.
I took her aside and I said, Julia, remember I had the slogan Kevin 07.
Yes.
You could have something similar. And I suggested her slogan could be O Ranga 10.
I don't think she took that up.
I don't believe so.
No.
Yes.
I don't know why.
I agree with you. Polls matter because I think ScoMo's got one firmly inserted at the moment. He certainly seems quite uncomfortable in that region.
Yes, I'm all the way behind Albo, just as I was back in Parliament. I don't know if you remember, there was a famous incident where I was picking my earwax and eating it.
Yes, I remember that, yes.
It was actually Anthony who was speaking at the desk at that time, and I think that really inspired him. He thought, if Kevin can do that, I too can be Prime Minister.
Love it. Love it. I mean, look, there's no doubt that you have been loved for many, many years and you get mobbed by fans here in Australia. What is it that makes you so beloved?
Excellent question, Andrew. I think what I have the common touch. I can talk to anyone, be it a working class bloke, lower socio-economic, whoever. I can speak their language. I remember it was just last week a young man came up to me and said, Kevin, I need your help. I want to save for a house. Do you have any words of wisdom about how I could achieve that goal? And I said, what you need to do is just get your finances in order. You've got to, you've got to save prudently. You've got to invest wisely. And then marry a multi-millionaire.
That helps.
And he looked at me in a special way. I think he really understood what I was saying.
Very good. It always helps, doesn't it?
Now, it doesn't help with your health, though. And I believe that you've, had a few medical issues lately.
Listen, I don't mind talking about it because I want to get this issue out there. I have over the years had a few medical issues, one with the heart valve, but now I encourage everyone, every male to do this, go along for your annual checkup. I had mine, it was about a month ago, and this was a bit of an odd one, guys, because I was lying there on my stomach, completely naked, being examined in that special way, and the doctor said, Kevin, I've got to tell you something. And I said, doctor, what is it? And he said, well, this is a bit strange. I said, well, spit it out. And he said, Kevin, there is a piece of a lettuce growing out of your bottom. And I said, doctor, is this serious? And he said, Kevin, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Which brings us to nicknames, because you've had your nickname, Kevin 07, K-Rudd. everyone seems to have a nickname. ScoMo has a nickname. Andrew's come up with a nickname for Anthony Albanese.
Right.
Oh, what is it, Andrew?
So, okay, we're using the same method that they used, but kind of for yourself with K-Rudd, and also Scott Morrison with ScoMo, using the first couple of letters, the second couple of letters. Of course, then we've got Anthony Albanese. Mm-hmm. Grab a few letters from the first, a few letters from the second, and we come up with a great nickname, Anal.
Nice. It kind of relates to my previous story.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
And I can see his slogan now. Vote anal.
Yes.
Give anal a go.
Big poster. Yes. Give me anal now.
Right.
I think could really work for Anthony.
Absolutely.
That's what we thought.
Yes.
I mean, which is why, we organised a pressure-releasing prostate massage for Anthony Albanese just to help him deal with, the troubles in the campaign.
He hasn't taken it up yet.
Well, no, the lady, as soon as we mentioned, does she do it for politicians, she hung up the phone.
Really?
She obviously doesn't like politicians.
Well, I think you've really put your finger on something there.
She does, apparently, in Paddy's Markets of all places. So.
Now, do you have any parting words of wisdom?
I do. I do. I'm just laughing with the joy of life. My parting words of wisdom for your listeners, your viewers: live in a state of perpetual programmatic specificity, conceptual synthesis, and reverse engineered outcomes. And most importantly of all, never forget to shake your own sauce bottle.
Yeah, that's right. A fair shake of the sauce bottle.
Well, thank you, K-Rudd, for joining us on the Bad Boys podcast.
And if you're ever feeling down, just sing these words. Rudders in the air, every sight and every sound, rudders in the air, and my stimulus abounds. Was I your most popular leader? Yes, I was. Am I clever and handsome and wise? Absolutely. I have something that you must believe in, and it's there when you look in my eyes. Rudders in the air, do, do, do. Boys, join in.
Rudders in the air.
That's gold.
Oh, Kevin
Remember
Rudd.
this face. Remember this voice.
You will never change. Please never change. It's just too good.
Got a zip, guys. Got a zip. Shay Shay. Sai Zhang.
Thank you,
See you, mate.
Kevin Rudd.
You can edit all this.
Or not.
Fabulous.
Oh,
yeah, right.
well, thank you for joining us on the Bad Boys.
It was me.
Look,
It was me all the time.
It was Anthony all along. For all these years, I never knew. Who knew? Yeah, we are going to share all of the links for your. We might even share a link or two from K-Rudd. And the Laughter Advantage, anyone can join anytime.
Absolutely. Go to thelaughter.advantage.com. Well, I'm still Kevin. Wait a minute. How do I talk normally?
Get out of character. Quick.
Out, demon. Out. Go to thelaughter.advantage.com. And yes, there's actually a free little booklet there about the benefits of laughter, which I've put up there for your listeners.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
avail yourself of that.
We will.
Andrew, good luck with the drug trade.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. And thank you for being an honorary bad boy.
Shane, thanks for just being you.
Oh, so unassuming.
Stay off the angel dust, mate.
And you can find out, we're going to actually put snippets of this show up if you're listening to the podcast. Check out Kevin Rudd in all of his glory on our social media pages, which is Official Bad Boys Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and on TikTok. We're going to put him on TikTok. Look out!
Whoa!
Yes, which is the
right.
what is it? the Bad Boys podcast.
Yeah,
Like,
something
who
like
would have
that.
known
That's
that, really?
Something like that.
And
That'll
don't
do.
forget to go to badboysfm.com for all your great music. Bad Boys FM, music with attitude.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Anthony Ackroyd.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Cheers,
it.
mate.
See ya.
Bye.
Press plus or follow to hear more great episodes from the Bad Boys. Or check us out on our social media at Official Bad Boys Podcast on both Facebook and Instagram.